This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the village board meeting to order for Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Here.
Trustee Kubaki.
Here.
Trustee Krieger.
Here.
Trustee Flukie.
Here.
Trustee Service.
Here.
And Trustee Paul and Trustee Zerbal are excused.
Please stand for the pledge. And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve, please.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, action on the open and closed minutes from the September 27, 2022 meeting. I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state your name and address, limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there anybody that would like to speak on any items not on tonight's agenda? One more time, anything not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we will move on. Number 7, written communications and/or announcements. Does anybody have any communications? I have none. Okay, we'll move on to number 8. Number 8, oath of office, public safety for a new officer. It's all you, Nick. It's the Nick show.
All right.
Hello, all right, here we go. Yeah, Chief Yule wasn't able to be here, so you get the substitute teacher. I guess any rules go, right? All right, yeah, we're here to swear in Nicole Nishke, our newest officer. So Nicole, if you want to come on up. She's really excited for this. So like I said, this is Public Safety Officer Nicole Nishke. She's our newest officer. She was hired June 13th of 2022. She started her career actually with the village as a community service officer. As a CSO, Nikki conducted parking lot accident reports, enforced village ordinances, assisted with traffic during accidents, fire calls, and also Packer game days. She's also assisted with medical calls as well. While working as a CSO, Nikki continued her work as security at St. John's Homeless Shelter, while also attending classes at NWTC. Nikki was enrolled in the Leeds Law Enforcement Program at NWTC and graduated in May of 2022, just prior to being hired with us as a public safety officer. Nikki also, prior to being hired, worked with the Packers for game day security as well. And also, one of the things I remember about Nikki too that I heard when she got hired was, how old were you when you owned your first house? 19 years old. I couldn't even make myself dinner, and she's already owning a house. So that, I remember that, it was pretty impressive. First we will do the oath of office, and then we'll have your parents come up and pin on your badge. All right, so you want to raise your right hand and just repeat after me, okay? I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith. True faith. And allegiance. To the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservations. Or purpose of evasion. And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Public Safety Officer. Office of Public Safety Officer for the Village of Ashwaubenon. acting to the best of my ability. All right, congratulations. If you want to have your mom and dad come up. It's Wanda and Joel Nishke will be pinning on her badge. All right, congratulations.
Congratulations and welcome. Okay, moving on here. Number 9, action on the consent agenda, which is the department reports. Does anybody want anything pulled, or would you like to?
I just have a question on 9D, please.
9B?
D as in dog.
Oh, D as in dog. Okay. 9D is the fleet replacement.
Department report?
I'm sorry?
It's a department report for Public Works.
Yeah?
Can I go ahead and ask my question?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brian, I was just wondering what the concerns are with TDS that you're recommending that we don't allow construction during the winter season.
The biggest concern with that is just restoration and the timeliness of that occurring. Currently, there's been some items that have been outstanding for weeks, pushing months, and that's the main concern at this point in time. There's also been some issues with property owners impacting some private property and stuff like that that they had committed to, coming to a solution, and it's still in limbo. So.
Okay. Thank you for staying on top of that. And
Yeah, no
it's probably a
problem.
good idea to stop it for winter then. Thank you.
Right.
That was it, Mary.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on it, or? I
Move
need
to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10A, action on Resolution R 10-1-22, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $8 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2022C. Greg and Brad.
Thank you. So we're coming before you. We've got a couple of bond issues that we want to move forward with. Brad Vigut from R.W. Baird is here to help walk through the process. It's a little bit different. You're seeing terms like establishing parameters that we don't typically see, and he'll walk through what all that means. I want to note first just one thing. I had a typo on this first one. The resolution is fine, but we're actually, the recommendation is for 8 million, not to exceed 8 million, not 1.8. It's a copy-paste error on my part. I apologize. So what we're doing here, he'll talk kind of broad terms with this agenda item and the next, but we can approve the resolutions independently. Ultimately, what we're doing in the village is a non-taxable and a taxable issue. That's why they're two separate resolutions. The non-taxable resolution are for some projects, the Ashwaubomay Park pedestrian bridge, some additional funding there, Lombardi Avenue Access Road construction, sidewalk construction in that area, and then we're going to start the Morris Avenue road construction project, and Element Way, the additional road that's going to be added in that area. So a lot of those aren't going to really kick off till starting late winter, spring, but we'll have the funding to start covering some of the costs involved there. So Brad, if you don't mind, he'll walk through. There's a packet in there with a timeline, and the packet from Baird, if you want to walk through that.
Sure, I'll do that. So typically, the approach that the village takes is that I'd be here on the night that an award resolution is adopted, and that resolution would finalize the rates and terms of the financing. That award resolution is finalized, but out in the marketplace, bonds or notes are sold that morning, and then it's finalized and brought to you in the evening. This is a slightly different approach. With this approach, you're authorizing a very narrow set of parameters that if we get to a point that those parameters are met, and I'll walk through those in a minute, then the authority to award the notes is delegated to the village president and the clerk. This has the benefit, this approach has the benefit of of providing more flexibility as to the timing of the issuance. As I'm sure you're aware, we're in a volatile interest rate environment. Rates are moving up and down, but primarily up, pretty much on a daily basis. So our plan with this approach is that with your authorization tonight, Baird Village staff will continue to take steps to get these issues ready for market. We'll secure a bond rating, we'll prepare the offering document, and then I anticipate probably on or around November 30th, we'll finalize interest rates. This also has the added benefit of moving away from that week of Thanksgiving, which is historically a very slow week in the market, in the bond market. Right now, there's not as much demand for municipal notes and bonds. So if we can move away from what's historically even a slow week, I think that's going to help with the overall execution of these notes. Once this is awarded, like I said, it's anticipated to be November 30th. The funds would close on December 15th. So it's on the 15th that the funds are wired to the village. I included a summary page of the two obligations. First, it's a general obligation promissory note, and the estimated issue size there is $7,705,000. This funds infrastructure projects in TID number 3 and number 5, as well as providing for capitalized interest for TID number 5. And that's really an effort to manage the cash flows of that TID, so we don't have a scenario where the village is advancing funds. We really want that TID to remain self-sufficient. This is structured with a 10-year repayment, so the final payment would be 2032. The estimated rate based on current market is the 4.14%. And then the parameters that would need to be met, which would authorize us to finalize, is that there's a not-to-exceed par amount of $8 million. And so that's why your agenda item is listed as $8 million. If we were final today, it would be $7,705,000. As I mentioned, the authority to sign the award certificate is delegated to the village president and village clerk. The not-to-exceed interest rate is 5%, but we're going to get a market rate. So as long as we're below 5, it's not that I'm going to come back and say, well, it's 5%. We're going to get the best rate that we can in the market. And then the maturity schedule is outlined as a parameter. Each individual principal payment can change by up to $700,000. We allow this to get to the debt structure that we need for this issuance. The right-hand side of the page, there's a taxable general obligation note. The anticipated size there is $1,435,000. That's for development incentives and capitalized interest for TID number 5. Also a 10-year obligation. The anticipated rate today would be a 520, and then the parameters for this issue are outlined on the bottom of the page. Not to exceed $1.5 million, maximum rate 6%, and up to $150,000 of annual changes to the annual principal and principal payments. I've included the detailed schedule of the amortization schedules. I won't walk through these necessarily. I just really included them here for completeness, but it does separate these issues into the components for TID number 3 and TID number 5. It identifies all the projects being financed and really provides a deeper dive into the detail that some board members may appreciate. So with that, I'd be glad to answer questions or go into any additional detail.
For the estimated interest rate, 5.2 for the taxable and then 4.1 for the other, is that because it's a lesser amount for taxable, or do you anticipate such a difference with that?
Yeah, taxable notes would have higher interest rates than tax-exempt notes, and that's so somebody who's earning a tax-exempt rate of return does not have to pay income tax on that interest. Somebody who earns the taxable rate does have to pay the income tax, so they're going to demand a higher interest.
Okay. Yeah.
So the bottom line, the reason why you're doing this is because of the volatility in the interest rates right now, to give you the flexibility to get the best rate for those bonds, correct?
That's right. That's correct.
That's really the only reason why there's a difference in your approach.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct, yeah. And I could add, this is common approach too. This isn't unheard of. A lot of municipalities throughout the state are using this approach right now.
Okay, any other comments? Thoughts?
There's none other, I would say, I would make a motion to approve the resolution R10-1-22, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $8 million in general obligation promissory notes, Series 2022C.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution R10-1-22, not to exceed $8 million. Okay, everybody understands? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10B, action on Resolution R10-2-22, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $1.5 million taxable general obligation promissory notes, Series 2022D.
So this
Brad
is
and
just the
Greg.
continuation. It's the
Continuation, yeah.
second issue. So all the same comments and commentary would apply.
So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution R10-2-22, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 1.5 million in taxable general obligation promissory notes, Series 2022D.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Resolution R10-2-22, not to exceed $1.5 million. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg and Brad. 10C, action on weights and measures fee schedule. It'll be Greg. We'll wait till he gets back to his seat.
So the next item here is for a weights and measure fee schedule. I have Eric Maggio, who's with the City of Appleton, as our contracted provider for weights and measure services, in case you have any other questions. Essentially what we're doing is we review the fee schedule every year, and the City of Appleton and Eric and his team will make recommendations to our fee schedule. And what the process is, they have a series of businesses that they go out and do weights and measure services for. They evaluate all of our businesses and we'll come back and say, hey, here's our daily rate and here's how many days we think we need to work. So part of then what they do is evaluate that cost. They cannot make a profit on that. They turn around and try to adjust our fee schedule accordingly so that what we're earning covers our cost. And there's a little bit of additional revenue for kind of administrative purposes, if you will, because we have to take in all the payments, we have to produce the licenses themselves, we have to mail them, collect all this. There's some accounting behind the scenes. So part of the reason of the increases, and Eric can chime in if you have questions, but they need to do an additional 5 days of service. We have a new Quick Trip, we have the Hy-Vee store, and we have another gas station that's likely to open. Eric said the Quick Trip alone, I think, is an additional 2 to 3 days of work. There's a lot involved at gas stations. You've got to pump gas out, measure it, weight it, then you have to pump it back in. So there's a lot of work involved. So the fee schedule you have in front of you, there are a lot of random changes. I don't profess to be an expert at what each of these all are and what it entails. So if you have specific questions, you can ask those and Eric's available to answer. But they're laid out before you. We typically have our current fee, there's an average fee, and we typically don't go above that average. We're usually somewhere between our current and average. We kind of float in the middle. There are a few that have gone up and over. I know the pre-pack sale one is new to us, and the reason it impacts 4 customers, I believe. And it's a lot of manual work for them. That's why they're recommending the rate that they're recommending. That one's a little bit of an outlier for us compared to average, but the rest of them kind of fall in a reasonable rate of or fee schedule, if you will.
Anybody have any questions?
No, it costs what it costs, and we have to offset those expenditures that we're going to deal with. So as a revenue source, I had a question on the pre-pack, but you addressed that, and this all makes sense, so.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the proposed revisions to the weight and measure fee schedule.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the weights and measures fee schedule. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
10D, Village Assessor Update on Assessment Ratios. Paul?
Hello. The Wisconsin Department of Revenue recently came out with their new ratios, and we're out of compliance now. We're at 89.5%. And for those of you that don't know, the state law is to be within 10% of the market. And so anytime you dip above or below that 10% bubble, so once you get below 90 or above 110%, you are then given 5 years to get back into compliance. So this is brought up to Joel and Greg and Mary. We had some discussions, and it was proposed to do a market adjustment for 2023, so this coming year right away. And it was also discussed to maybe do like an ongoing schedule where from now on, because it's becoming a trend where we are getting out of compliance every 2 years, like a lot of other municipalities right now. And I think the city of De Pere is doing an annual one where they do a market adjustment every year. I mentioned the Village of Howard too at our finance committee meeting last week, where they've been on a schedule. I think, I'm not sure when it started. It was probably the early 2000s, where every 3 years they do a market adjustment just to stay in compliance and for equity purposes, because the market always changes, so like we discussed last week a little bit, we just make sure that everybody's in line with the market as it does change. So it was discussed to do a market adjustment for 2023, and then possibility of an ongoing schedule from here on out.
Yeah, we discussed this as a staff, and everybody just saw the big headlines. There was another municipality close to us that just had to do a reassessment and hadn't done one in quite some time, and people received some very large increases in their assessments, so we don't want to have to do that, so.
Yeah, if I could add to that comment. So one of the things that Paul identified is that we're currently, as of January 1, 2022, out of compliance at a ratio of 89.5%. Now, if I remember correctly, Paul, if we choose not to do a market adjustment in 23, that non-compliance ratio is going to continue to grow and will be around 82%, I think it was.
Yeah, I looked at it a little bit closer after we talked last week, and if we were to do one for 2023, the average homeowner, the assessed value would increase roughly 20 to 25%. Now this changes, it's based on the market, so predicting 2024 or beyond is, a question, but it's been pretty steady at 8% a year. So if you wait till 2024, the average assessed value would go up, say, between 28 and 33% increase. And 2025, continuing out, well, then you're closer to 40% increase. And that's assuming the housing market continues to do what it's doing.
So there's a couple other factors that we had conversations with internally that I think are notable. One, when we did a market adjustment a year ago, that was only for residential class properties. It did not include commercial class properties, primarily because coming out of the pandemic, there was some concerns about the value and it related to the pandemic to those commercial class properties, to the point that the state did allow us to do a market adjustment only for residential class and not commercial class. Well, since the pandemic has since waned, commercial class properties have increased in value since that time, and they too are outside of that 10% deviation from equalization. So what we'd like to do is do a market adjustment again for all classes to get everybody back to 100% equalization. That ensures fairness and uniformity in assessment for all classes, thus creating compliance with taxation laws as it relates to uniformity. So that's one of the big reasons why we're looking at or proposing to do another adjustment in 23. Then beyond that, obviously, if the further we fall out of compliance, the harder it is to kind of eventually get back to that point. And it creates a lot of issues for residents because they don't necessarily understand it. When they get a letter saying that their assessed value increases 28 to 32%, there's a lot of consternation from that. So we want to make sure that we're staying as close to equalization as we can. And then third, as Paul had mentioned, the proposal to eventually get to a 3-year rotation on market adjustments we feel is important because of the volatility of the market. Obviously, a high rate of growth recently, a lot of demand for housing. So we want to make sure that we're staying close to equalization. But then conversely to that, and the argument can always be made, if the market begins to soften and pricing continues to decrease, or interest rates, with the increase in interest rates, we see a decrease in value or demand, will that then have an effect? And by doing it every 3 years, we can stay on top of that and stay as close to 100% equalization as we possibly can, thus maintaining uniformity over time.
So this 89.2% that we're at right now, does that include commercial and residential?
Correct, yeah, 89.5% is the overall ratio
Okay.
for all
And
classes.
since we already did the market adjustment for residential, do you not feel if we would now just do it to commercial, that we would not get back into compliance?
Well, residential is out of compliance. So residential would need to be adjusted. And when we did it in 2021, it was brought up to commercial level. So commercial was at 94% and residential was out of compliance at that time. And we wanted to get residential to 94%, or somewhat close to that. So one other thing, another way to get out of compliance is if one of your major classes is out of compliance too, the overall ratio could be, say, 92%. But if residential is one of your major classes and it's at 85%, then you're also out of compliance.
Okay.
So it's the overall ratio, and then it's one of the 2 primary classes, which is typically residential and commercial.
So this is for information purposes at this particular point in time, but I guess you're kind of letting us know that we're going to see the costs associated with that investment in the 2023 budget.
I think what you'll end up seeing is a proposal and a contract for services prior to budget adoption. Our plan would be to utilize ARPA funds that we have currently this year that have been unspent, so that this does not have a direct impact. So we'll initiate the service yet this fall and pay for it this fall through ARPA funding, so that it doesn't impact the 2023 budget.
Okay.
So
thank you.
And the estimated cost for that, I know, Paul, you had mentioned it at our last meeting, was about $90,000.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, 10E, consider, discuss, act on request from Discover Green Bay for Visitor Center financial support. Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. With me tonight is Brad Toll and Cameron Teskey from Discover Green Bay. As indicated in your packet, Discover Green Bay is looking at constructing their brand new visitor center. They have had a formal groundbreaking ceremony a few weeks ago in hopes of constructing that facility. By and large, this project is reliant on substantial donations and dollars committed to the project from a variety of public and private partners. As indicated in the packet, Discover Green Bay is looking for public support from area municipalities, in particular the City of Green Bay, Brown County, as well as the Village of Ashwaubenon. They have since requested support from the village of $50,000 to support that project. Again, Brown County and I believe the city of Green Bay have committed funds for their project or their component as well. We do have funding available within our excess sales tax fund, which was leftover dollars, if you will, from the stadium sales tax project. Apparently, over time, the village has not used all of those funds. At present, our current fund balance is just under $28,000. So if the board is interested in supporting this particular project, it could utilize the excess stadium tax, sales tax fund, as well as ARPA dollars if it so chose to do so. So with that, Brad and Cameron are here to, certainly answer any questions that you may have and see what you think.
I was at a luncheon today with Brad and Cameron, and the costs have gone up. This has been 7 years in the making, and the costs have gone up so significantly that from the county, they originally were awarded a $500,000 interest-free loan for their project. The county has since given them $650,000 as a grant, so they don't have to pay it back because the costs have just escalated so high. So since we have the money in the excess stadium tax, and it's supposed to be used for economic development, we thought that that was a great opportunity. Brad and Cameron, if you would like to come up, and if anybody has any questions, they will. State your name and address for the record, though, please.
Brad Toll, 1246 Prairie Falcon Trail.
Cameron Tusky, 1138 Anchor Drive.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for them, or would you just like them to present their...
I have a question. What is Discover Green Bay? Is that separate from the Visitor and Convention Bureau, or?
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Convention and Visitors Bureau, our convention planners recognize that name and use it regularly. Visitors, not so much.
Oh, okay.
It sounds bureaucratic, and visitors aren't sure they want to talk to the people at the Bureau. So we changed the name to Discover Green Bay, which is very typical in the industry. Most, like it's Visit Milwaukee, Destination Madison. There's a lot of different names now, but what we hear when people come into our community is they find a lot more here than they expected. And as a result, we're inviting people to discover the community.
Okay.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about the building? What do you have planned for it? And just revisit the location that maybe everybody knows, but maybe some in the audience don't.
Sure.
The location of the building is going to be on Lombardi Avenue and Argonne, the intersection. The U.S. Bank building is on the front left of that parcel, and we will be on the back right of that. A main entry point as visitors are coming into our community. Obviously, Lambeau Field is a major draw for visitors to come into the greater Green Bay area. We wanted to design and ultimately build a beautiful building that is really eye-catching and inviting to come into. So we have a beautiful glass building that Somerville Architects designed, and it's broadside right on the facing that first intersection as people are heading eastbound down Lombardi Avenue. Location is everything, as we have heard in the travel industry over the last really 7 to 10 years, as visitor centers are making a resurgence in the industry. People want to talk to people. There was a while that the internet was the thing, and now people are realizing that just because it's on the internet doesn't make it true. They want to talk to a person and get their recommendations. People will do their research before they get to a destination, and they are interested in kayaking. So they'll do the online research, but then when they get into a community, they want that validation from the local experts. Discover Green Bay are the local experts within the community around here. And within the building itself, as a visitor center, we will be able to answer those tourist questions, the where should I go kayaking, the where should I go out to eat, what are your recommendations. But we also want this to be a facility that really tells the story of our entire community, pre-European settlement through Jean Nicolet's arrival, the Native American influence on the area, the paper industry, the waterways, and the importance that had on the early peoples and the people today, and where we got and why and how we got to where we are, and then also where we are going in the future. So it's really a mini storytelling to really promote and be proud of our community and tease those visitors into, great, we have a little bit of a teaser on fishing in the area, in the visitor center, talking about what options there are, and great, go out to Ashwaubomay Park and you can throw your pole into the Fox River. So we want to tease them into getting out into our community as well.
Well, the Village of Ashwaubenon has had a long history working with the Green Bay Convention and Visitor Bureau, and we've always worked well together. I think it's a tremendous asset, and it kind of puts the frosting on the Titletown area, per se. And like I say, we've had an excellent working relationship with you. And with that, I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to fund via the stadium district dollars and the ARPA, the $50,000 to make this work.
You know, one of the unique things that I learned today from Nick when he was talking to me, so everybody knows that the cruise ships came in to the Fox River into Green Bay. They did an article, Brad did an interview. The Railroad Museum is one of the featured things in National Geographic magazine. So I thought that was really pretty. We have a lot of really intriguing things here. You know, a couple months ago, they had the people from Italy, all the people that have businesses here that also have businesses in Italy, and how they're all cross-connected, and it's just really interesting. So you'll be able to tell all those stories.
Absolutely, yeah. The Railroad Museum in the international market is a very, very popular attraction. Particularly Europeans are very interested or fascinated by that history of the development of the West through the railroads. So it's very popular.
Yeah, so that'll be really great stories to tell. Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion that the village support the visitor center project utilizing the remaining excess stadium dollars, augmented also by ARPA dollars, to a total dollar amount of $50,000. That would be my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to make the $50,000 commitment with excess stadium tax dollars and the rest in ARPA to the Discover Green Bay Visitor and Convention Center. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 10F, action on Ashwaubomay River Trail Bridge bid publishing. Rex Melberg.
Well, as you know, our department has been working with Grafe on design of the bridge as part of the Ashwaubomay River Trail project. Currently, Ashwaubomay River Trail runs from the marina to the south side of the Bay Harbor condominiums. We have lighting already in place, which will soon be paved, a paved trail also around Alden Station. That will be done in 2023. The next part of the project, or the trail project, is proposed to be the bridge, which would cross from Alden Station into Ashwaubomay Park, which would connect to the northern end of the lake parking lot. That would be the next phase, and probably one of the biggest phases, obviously, just because of the nature of the project. As I said, we've been working with Grafe for a number of years now on the project. They are literally 99% done with all the bid specifications. What we're looking for tonight is just discussion on the bridge project as necessary. hear comments from anybody in the audience, and then decision on whether to officially go out to bid on the project. If the vote were to go out to bid, it would come back to the next village board meeting for discussion and action at that point. So I guess I would entertain, we have Pat Skalecki. Pat has been the lead from Grafe. He is on, yes, he's listening in with us right now, and he is certainly able to answer any questions that you may have regarding the bridge project. The bridge is actually about 420 feet in length from shore to shore. And I guess I'll just open it up to questions you may have.
Okay, does anyone on the board have questions? Or if not, I would like to entertain that we do open the floor.
Make a motion to open the floor.
I will second that.
Motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for this project or against this project? Mike, would you please come up, state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Mike Hockers. We've got all of the homestead property that's been along this, correct? Half the bridge that goes into the park came off of my property. When that was done, I'm the 5th generation to utilize the creek. We've all been boaters. You haven't seen activity there because our family had a private harbor in Sister Bay that was able to handle 5 of these 38s in it. And the estate is now, both parents are gone. The estate has been liquidated, and we no longer have that option. So it's I have 3 of these 38s, but 2 of them, I went in the warehouse where they're stored tonight and verified what I'm asking, and that's 15 feet. That is a number that can't get shorter. In fact, the radar arch has to come down to get under that bridge. It's not designed to go down. It's a fixed bridge, so I'll have to get past that. But very disappointed some of my neighbors haven't come. Brett is a commercial airline pilot, served his career for the military. So he's now entered into the bottom of the totem pole. So he expressed to me that he wasn't sure he could make it. Otherwise, we've got most of the neighborhood here. So I'm asking for 15 feet, and I should be asking for 18 feet, but removing everything that can be removed, I can work with 15 feet on that bridge. And I have to fight for 5 generations of access to this creek. It's that important. I'll be honest, I don't know what it entails to raise the bridge. How many feet? What is it at now?
Well, we originally started, Mike, at 5 feet, and we heard a lot of opposition to that. So we raised it up to 10. I don't know what the estimate for 14 was, so I don't even know that they could do 14 or 15 feet. I would defer to Pat Skalecki or Rex on that one. I don't know that we could even make it that high.
I think at this point, it's not really even about the cost, but it would be, with 15 feet, it would be the landing that's necessary.
Correct.
Which we would have at Ashwaubomay Park, but I don't believe we would have it at Alden Station.
Explain that to me, please.
So if the bridge was raised to 15 feet with a slope downward to each bank, you would need to go farther out to keep the grade at ADA requirements. Because of the home building and the space that has been planned out for Alden Station, I don't believe at this point anymore, and I might be wrong on this, I'm not sure, I can't speak for Alden Station, but I don't believe that there's enough room anymore to be able to push that landing further to the north, which would be required to get that grade where it needs to be.
The height that is established right now, is that what? Just one clear,
At 10 feet above ordinary high water mark.
okay? And
Mike, could you do me a favor and just pull that microphone a little bit closer
This
to
one?
you? Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, so we can make sure we get your voice picked up on the recording. Thank you.
thank you.
Mike, have we, okay, we got 15 feet going up. Have we looked at your 38 footers? How far into the water do they settle? And will the creek support them from a depth standpoint?
They will.
Okay.
And they're,
Now, I don't know what that number is, but I also know how low that creek gets, and it hasn't been dredged in 20 years?
Over 30.
30 years? Yeah. So
in my lifetime, I've never seen that creek dredged.
I think it was when the park was originally opened, was probably when it was. That was the only thing I could remember. Way back when. You and me were there, but.
Sure.
So how deep, so you think the creek is deep enough to be able to float it? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Creek's deep enough. The boat only, it's all aluminum. So it only draws 36 inches.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That has never been a problem on there. So this is huge. I don't know if you guys see how huge it is. I'm going to get a little controversial here because there's a bit of a tag that's been put on this bridge, the bridge that goes nowhere. In other words, over into the park. You have a bridge. You have a bridge that comes off of Broadway that services that park, and the walkway that brings it over. So I really question how there's no complete connection that brings it, no, it's too close, that brings it full circle to go anywhere and collect and connect. But again, I need 15 feet. You know, we've had through the conversations, Mike, and you've been at all of the meetings that we've had. This is a phase 2, basically, of the trail. The trail starts at the marina, and it goes south. This is phase 2 of the trail. The plan has always been to go behind Ashwaubomay Lake. That's another phase. Then we have behind NEW Water, which is another phase. And then eventually, the Brown County Fairgrounds has the trail all along the fairgrounds. So this has been in the plans for a long time. I don't know that, like Rex said with this, if you are saying that we have to do a 15-foot arch on that,
I don't know that that would work. To go, my question to you is, when was the last time that your boat was in that creek?
I probably had a roamer in the creek 10 years ago. Again, the harbor in Sister Bay along Beach Road was where we based out of, and that's gone. And since that estate has been gone, I haven't put one in because I have no place to put it on that end. I have a smaller boat that I take up and back, but you're shutting off my access to this creek. Anybody wants to see these boats? Again, I was in that building. There's a pair of them in there, and I wanted to confirm my measurements. I didn't want to. I wanted to know what I needed, and it's confirmed.
Mr. Hawkers, your comment on the experience between riding on Broadway versus the trail and the bridge going in is two very different experiences for a cyclist or for someone walking. And the bridge has been in the plan since prior to me. I used to be the Parks and Recreation Director from 1993 to 2005. When I started my position, it was in the plan to put a bridge from what was the Schneider National property to Ashwaubomay Park. So this is not something new, like Mary had mentioned. It's been in the plan for a long time. And yes, people can walk on Broadway, people can bicycle on Broadway, but the experience that you get bicycling on the trail that will continue to the south, and hopefully someday will even continue to the north, is very different. And some people will not walk or bike on Broadway. They will feel much more comfortable on a trail, and that's where they will go. And that's what we're trying to do here, get a recreational trail that will entice all people to walk and bike, and this bridge is a key component of this trail system.
We're talking about from Hanson Road to the entrance to Ashwaubomay Park.
Absolutely. Yep.
Not very far. To get across the bridge that you have.
Very different experience for people, getting them down by the river. The Fox River Trail.
I just don't understand it.
The Fox River Trail is very much the same, riding along the river, and people, it's the busiest trail in the state of Wisconsin. So this will be a nice asset to the west side.
Is that on the east side that you're talking about?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Not on our west
Yes,
side?
that is the east side trail.
I bike that trail myself.
And you love it, I bet.
Go to Deep Pier and cross the bridge and love to make that run.
Yep, and this could potentially connect to it someday.
I'd have to echo Mary's comments and Tracy's as well. Like, it has been in the plans for a significant amount of time. I think it's a quality of life issue for the community. And, you know, it's sometimes when these things do occur, you have to look at the overall impact on the entire community versus perhaps one individual or two individuals or whatever the case may be. You know, the use there has not been there on your part, and it may occur, it may not occur, but in the bigger picture, you know, this is something I would support as we go forward. I think it makes sense from a community perspective, from a perspective of quality of life for runners, walkers, bicyclists, tying the park to other areas of the community. So I always hate when you have a negative impact on citizens. I've lived it. My parents lived it when the state took land from them and pretty much destroyed our creek in front of our property. But it was viewed for the public good. We disputed it, but in the bigger picture, after a number of years and looking at it, it was the best thing to do for the entire populace. So I understand where you're at. I understand I've been there. It's not a good place to be, but when you look at the overall positive impact, I think on the community this will have, I think these are the things you got to do. So, and if there was a way to come up with an alternative solution, I'm all ears, but I don't know that that's out there right now, or will be in the future either.
Well, thank you for sharing that. But you have a bridge. You have a bridge that goes into Ashwaubomay Park. You don't have a connection that takes you past. How many years are you looking down the road to get past the water treatment plant and to get past beyond U.S. paper? I hear you talking about planning. This sure was not, this is new to us in our neighborhood. You talk about how long this has been in the planning. We're not been aware of that. So I don't understand about you explaining how long this has been in the planning.
It's been out there for a while, Mike. I've seen it during my tenure. Tracy has seen it. Mary has seen it. Our staff has seen it. You know, there's been discussions on it, and I think very early on you were concerned about it, and that was 10 years ago when I was here, I think. And so with that, there has been discussion, and I don't think that roadway off of Broadway is comparable to what we're doing with the bridge crossing the creek closer to the Fox River. I don't think you can compare those as equivalent comparisons. They provide different, they serve different purposes.
Explain that to me. How do they serve different purposes?
Think of your, excuse me, think of your experience. You said you ride the Fox River Trail regularly, correct? Or you are out there.
Yeah.
So compare riding the Fox River Trail with maybe riding Broadway. Have you ridden Broadway on your bicycle? Okay, so think of the difference.
Have to
Just
get here, so.
you've experienced it. And maybe on the Fox River Trail, it's more relaxing for you. There's more to look at. It's more beautiful. It's you don't have the motor vehicles out there with you. So the experience that you are having as a bicyclist, for instance, is much different on the trail, and it would be much different on with what's bridge in and continuing the trail into Ashwaubomay than you're getting on Broadway. Broadway is more for bicyclists, is more for maybe commuting and transportation. It's a straight shot. You're going to work, you're going wherever. This trail will be more recreational in nature and entice everybody to get out and get on it. So the experience is very different, just like what you experience when you go on the Fox River Trail versus riding on Broadway.
You're talking about 5 properties from Hanson, from where this bridge is going to cross to where the existing bridge that Ashwaubenon has to enter that park. It's a really short distance that you're talking about in this experience that you're trying to create to go from, I don't know if it's tied to Alden Station and I don't understand.
I mean, it's been in plans, like we mentioned, for a long time, and I walked Schneider National property many times in the past to say, okay, where could it go, where would be a good spot for it? So, you know, you're saying it's a very short distance, but the trail is at the river right now, so then the people on the trail have to bicycle back up to Broadway, come back into Ashwaubomay. So it is a long distance for someone walking, a longer distance for someone walking or biking. It is not just those 5 houses on Broadway that a bicyclist or walker would have to traverse. They're going west, coming back, and then coming back east again. So you're putting them kind of out of their way to get to Ashwaubomay Park. This way, it's a straight shot into the park.
Into the back of the park.
Exactly.
Everything that functions in the park is at where the bridge goes in. Walk it every night with the Ashwaubomay Park So your bridge, hey, look, if you can give me 15 feet, great. Otherwise, I've got to do what I can to preserve what I have.
Absolutely.
And that's 5 generations of being able to boat out of that creek.
Yeah, and the village has already put, what was it, about 100,000 more into the project to raise it that additional 5 feet above what was required from the DNR. So the village has taken some steps and has made them things to make it more palatable. But to go to 15 is not feasible, and maybe the cost is prohibitive as well. But the village has taken some steps to make it more palatable to the residents.
Well,
Mr.
thank you for
Hodges.
listening to me.
Do you have, would your smaller boat fit at the 10-foot height in and out of that
Pardon
creek?
me?
Would your smaller boat fit under the 10-foot bridge? You said something about you had a smaller boat that you,
Yeah, it's a fishing boat. It isn't something you can take to Charlevoix, Gladstone,
Right.
Escanaba. You know, that's our world. Any of you have ever crossed the lake, it's unbelievable. There's a point when you're out there that you lose sight of land. In front of you, in back of you, I mean, you're in your own little ocean out there for about 45 minutes. It's just the coolest feeling. But that's the boater in me.
so I think Jay was touching on this when he asked how much water you need to get in with your 38-footer. So do you have the actual number that you're?
Yes, yeah, 36 inches.
So your 38-footer draws 36 inches.
Yep. No,
And
it's 38, but yeah. it's-
38.
Mhm.
And I think we almost need to know if we have 38 inches in the creek.
36.
Because I've kayaked it and my paddle has hit pretty far into the middle there, which there's probably a channel someplace. But I'm
There
also,
is.
I'm
There is
also
a channel.
worried that
Yeah.
is the highest point of the bridge going to be right where that channel is? Because I think it's pretty close to the Alden Station side. Because you can get pretty far out there on the Ashwaubomay Park side, and it's only knee-deep.
Right, but you have to stay on the left side for the deep part of the creek.
Yeah.
So there's a channel, and always follow the high side.
I'll just weigh in. This is Pat. Yeah, there is a channel, at least where we did the survey of the river bottom and the creek bottom. That's the reason why the observation deck and that 10-foot clearance segment is offset within the bridge, is because it is centered on the channel, which has adequate depth for what he's indicating. I think basically ordinary high water mark is a little under 581, and the water depth at that location is about 574, 573. Again, that only exists around that deep section where the bridge crosses and where that clearance, that 10-foot clearance is provided. Our survey went about 150 feet up the creek. And it generally stays at that same depth, but again, that's just in the vicinity of the bridge. So as you get up to the, I guess, further to the west and southwest, we don't have survey information to determine what that area is as you get up by the launch. We know the launch is shallow, but that's quite a ways upstream from this bridge location.
And we can't get under that entrance bridge. I mean, that's pretty low, so entrance to Ashwaubomay ends at that bridge, except for the smaller kayakers or, and it gets real shallow under that bridge.
Mike, would you consider using a slip upriver? I know it's not as convenient for you and everything, but right now you're going to Sister Bay. You know, that's basically where you sailed out of. Yeah, it's more convenient to do it right out of the back of your house, but if a slip could be reserved for you at, you know, let's say up by the marina or someplace like that, Could there be some compromise to do that?
You mean at the mouth of the river?
No, like in the marina, just up the road from you a little bit, where the marina is up there,
You're talking to that.
Right up
to the north.
by the OC, the restaurant, the OC, in front of Mansell Flats.
Does Ashwaubenon own that marina?
But I'm just saying, if something like that could be organized, would you, could we negotiate something like that? Because I understand what you're saying, but you also haven't used this in a lot of years. I'm hearing you say, okay, but that's because you were always going up to Sister Bay and now you've lost that. Did that just happen this past year? That you lost the slips in Sister
under
Bay?
2 years, yeah,
The last couple of years?
when that estate closed.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is, could it be possible that, if some way we could make an arrangement that you would have a slip, and, we could talk to your neighbors and see about the possibility of renting a slip for that you could then have that. A lot of boats are going to fit underneath there at 10 feet. It's just, I get, your 38-footer isn't gonna. I get that. But what I'm wondering is when somebody has that situation like you do have, could we, would you at least entertain the idea that we would maybe provide you a slip at a marina as close as we can to you, so you don't have to be driving all over the place, that you could use?
Jay, I appreciate your effort there. I'm very concerned about the longevity of being able to maintain that on Ashwaubenon's level.
We'd have to get the agreement, and we would make that agreement work. And obviously, it would have to be something that you would agree to. And the longevity has to be built into that agreement.
There's a reason why we put almost 400 feet of sheet bombing along that creek. And we did that ourselves. I think that would not give me the confidence. I'm asking you to give me 15 feet under that bridge.
And unfortunately, from what I'm hearing, we couldn't put the bridge up to give you 15 feet, just because we don't have the space. So that's kind of where we're at. That's why I'm trying to find some way to help you out, because we all can appreciate your situation. We get it. And trying to find some sort of a compromise to, in some way, show the appreciation of, well, yeah, okay, it isn't going to be as convenient. How can we help that out there? That's why I'm just asking, if we could work on something like that, would you at least entertain looking at it?
Can I think about this?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Mike.
Well, I think that something like this would be something that would have to be addressed parallel with what we're doing tonight.
Correct.
Right.
And I think tonight what we're focusing in on is whether to go forward and bidding that. And I think that's the crux of the decision we make tonight.
Right.
That being said, is there other comments out there that we should be hearing? Mike has given us his comments.
Right.
And that type of thing, but do we have other comments that pertain to this particular development?
Okay. I want to thank you, Mike, for all of your comments. We want to hear from the other people. I think that's a great thought. Rex and I had actually discussed a slip, a dock slip somewhere for you. So, you know, tonight is the bidding, if we want to move forward with the bidding of the bridge, and we do want to hear from the other people too, but I think that that's a great idea.
There's more than one way to skin the cat, is what it comes
Yes,
down to.
yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else out there that would like to speak for or against this project? Okay.
Hello, I'm Dawn Goodman. I'm with the Bay Shore Bicycle Club. I'm their political advocate. We would just like to express that we are very much in favor of the project. We think it's important to continue connectivity. It's so important to provide the West Side people with some connectivity for safe, enjoyable biking, walking, and so forth on this side of the river. Right now, we do come across over the bridge in De Pere usually, or from downtown, and we'll ride into the community and take advantage of what's over here. But we have to do it mostly along Broadway. And it gets pretty dicey, especially with the trucks and the industrial people that are along there, mainly trucking. It's very intimidating. We also have to ride through some of the glass that ends up spilling out from along Waste Management. Many of us get flat tires, but we still persist and come into the community. And it's wonderful in the areas where we can come down already through Ashwaubomay Park and the Ashwaubomay Trail. So we would like to encourage you to continue your progress in developing that area, making it a safer refuge kind of for all of us. And I think if you continue, it's a very progressive project you have. And if you build it, we're going to come and we're going to support it in a lot of ways. Mainly, of course, with our pocketbooks. It's an enjoyable, wonderful area, and you guys on the west side deserve to have what a lot of us already are doing down on the Fox River Trail. So we want to encourage you, and we'll support you and try to help out if we can. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak for or against this? Come on up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Ann Rapette. I live in 2625 Bay Harbor Circle. I'm going to be short and sweet. I kind of agree with him. I live there. I think it's an extravagance. I never could understand why they were building the bridge myself. I thought like he said, you can go along the sidewalk. But like I can understand people talking about biking and stuff. And I guess it's been in the works for a long time. I've only lived there for 4 years. So I just kind of caught wind with, of this last year or two. I just thought it was a lot of money to spend for a bridge, but there's more to it than that. And I sympathize with you. I guess I understand where he's coming from. If I had a boat, which I do, and would have a hard time using it, would probably bother me. There's also docks that a slip that he might be able to get over at Bay Harbor, and he could probably buy it for like, I think they're like $3,000. So I'm just saying, because not everybody uses their slips out there. Right. But anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ann. Anybody else like to speak for or against this?
Nancy Matke, 2831 Timber Lane. I am here tonight not only as an interested resident, but also as a spokesperson for the Ashwaubenon Walking Club to support this project. I think this is a beautiful bridge. It is well thought out and designed and really a lovely blend of form and function. When this is completed, it's going to open up Ashwaubomay Park to a lot of new users, but more than that, it's going to open up the waterfront to the residents of Ashwaubenon in a way that we've never had before. This is a project that has been talked about for a very, very long time, and I think if there's one thing we have all learned in the last few years is that everything is only getting more expensive. The time to build this bridge is now, and you are the people who can make that happen. Please make it happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this project? Okay, I need a motion to close the floor, please.
So move.
Seconded.
Motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so we now need direction. If we would like to send the bridge out for bid.
Correct. Pat, who is still on right now, will have the bid specs ready to go if approved this evening, and then we would get them out this week.
Can I ask a couple questions on the bridge design? I had asked Rex at Park Board to let us know what the construction material is for the bridge itself. If maybe Pat or Rex could address that. My concern is making sure it's something that could be cleared in the winter and is not going to damage the bridge.
I'll let Patrick handle that one.
Thanks, Rex. I'll focus on the decking because really the bridge is a pile supported with concrete piers, pre-stressed, or I'm sorry, steel girder bridge with timber supports and beneath the decking. And the decking is a composite decking. We're specifying it's called Trex, or there's a couple other manufacturers out there. This is a durable, has some sustainable reused materials within it with a coefficient of friction that's consistent with concrete when it's wet. So brush concrete like a sidewalk. So very good, very applicable. We've used it on a number of bridges in the Fox Valley as well as other locations throughout Wisconsin. So it's very good and very usable, very durable over the winter freeze-thaw cycles. The removal of plowing can happen. We do not recommend a steel edge or a carbonite edge plow, but typically we would recommend either a rubber edge or a brush, one of those drum brushes that you see on implements on skid steers or something like that, that municipalities typically have. So yes, it can be plowed. It's going to be able to handle, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but typically, and what I recall is this was at least a 10,000 pound load, which is a pickup truck or larger vehicle load, can handle that type of a vehicle weight, but definitely can be removed. Snow removal can happen. Just something you want to obviously be care of. This isn't a concrete or an asphalt roadway. So just using appropriate types of measures can be done so that it is a year-round facility.
So what would you say a life is of that product, Patrick? I think we have the same stuff on our deck, but...
Yeah, it's very common. People use it for their residential decks. We used it in Little Choucacana on the bridge that opened up. The Nelson Heritage Crossing Bridge has it. We used it on Loop the Lake, which both the bridges crossings in Neenah and Menasha, going over the Neenah and Menasha channels. We used it on the Trussell Trail Bridge, which is the one crossing Little Lake Butamore from Fox Crossing to Menasha. All of those, and in fact, I think, and I know we did on the Herb and Dolly Smith Park Bridge, which is also down in Neenah, which crosses the Neenah Slough. So those are just that, it's a very common decking. I think they've even used it on most bridges in Appleton that have recently been completed over the Fox River. Very durable. It's very common. And like I said, you can look it up. It's Trex Duralife, I think is the name. Siesta. Those are some of the things you can Google, but the life on these composite decks, they can extend 50 years beyond. They really have a long, durable life. You pay a little more upfront on capital costs, but compared to a treated lumber that doesn't have any maintenance, and those. Everybody knows it has a deck. Those are things you need to stain. You need to check the nails. They pull up, they warp, they get replaced panels every 10 years or less at times. So a much better durable system with a better ride and similar characteristics to asphalt or paved surfaces for friction, which is important when it's wet.
And then one other question I had on the aluminum bridge railing. Is there That's got to be more, is that more expensive than steel, and why do we go with aluminum on that?
So aluminum is more of a maintenance-free type of material. It's similar to steel in the way that you can shape it so that you can customize it. It gives that brushed look, which is kind of that clean, metallic, I don't even want to say industrial because it doesn't rust. That's the best thing about aluminum is it doesn't rust. It has very low maintenance and very long durability as well. Steel can be used. It is slightly less expensive. It's good in this case because of what we're doing with the lighting that we can custom size the tubular members, or they're going to be kind of square, rectangular with rounded edges. Maybe you're talking about a 15% reduction in cost for steel, but then steel, you have to get it galvanized and then you have to paint it. And painting is a maintenance component that you'll have to deal with over time. In all likelihood, you're going to have some rust kind of show through over time that might need to be maintained again, ground down and repainted, but it's really a component of maintenance versus no maintenance. A steel railing we would typically paint in a black, which we could look at, versus the brushed aluminum look. So it's a little different look as well. A minor reduction in cost, but it is a reduction in cost, yes, compared to the very simple railings that are out there with the timber posts and things. Those are very simple, and we've done them. A lot of the bridges that you see in the Northeast Wisconsin area have those other styles, but this is just a much more clean, decorative, really fits what this design is intended to show and really kind of make it a beacon to the area.
Thank you.
I had a question about the lighting. I think it was at the committee meeting where it was discussed that there's going to be lighting on the deck. And I'm just trying to visualize how that's going to work with the snow removal and when you take the snow plow over, isn't it going to hit those lights on
The lights that we've designed are going to be effectively embedded or inserted within the bottom rail that goes along the railing itself. So they're going to be flush mounted. You're not going to see, all you're going to see is the lens, and they have basically a lens with a flange, and then they slide inside the tube on the bottom of the rail. So they don't extend out. They're literally inside the bottom rail with a flush mount. So it's going to be basically a smooth edge along the face of the bottom rail with the fixture. You're going to see the fixture, of course, about 6 inches above the deck is about where that rail is located. So, and again, there's a gap underneath the rail that the snow can get pushed off and under. So it's not going to pile up against that rail either to block it.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was worried about. And then the only other question I had, and I'm not sure if it's for today or later, is if we're going to consider putting in the bid or putting in our budget an expense item for clearing the bridge all year round, because I think it was a resident who mentioned at the last meeting that there's going to be debris on that bridge from geese because it's all over the trail down there all year round. Doesn't have anything to do with the construction, but I'm just thinking we should maybe talk about it now because it might impact whether people want to support the bridge or not.
Sure, there are going to be geese. There's geese at the marina, there's geese on the Bay Harbor Trail or in front of Bay Harbor condominiums, and there's geese in Ashwaubomay Park. So there is going to be a cleaning aspect to it. Pat and I have talked about some geese deterrent measures and installing them on the bridge themselves. There's different things you can do. You can put up whips that have little pieces of tinfoil that kind of blow in the breeze. There's different audio sounds that can be built in, that could potentially scare the geese. There are, you can do the general post with an owl perch or something like that. So there's different things that can be done. I don't think it's going to be a catch-all where it's going to keep the geese totally off. But it has been discussed of what can we do to try and minimize the need for the cleanup on the bridge, during those times when they're around a lot. I think one of the biggest things is the more that bridge gets used, the less the geese are going to be wanting to hang out there. And hopefully with the, if this proceeds forward, if the money comes in at the amount that we're hoping it comes in at, if it goes out to bid, that we'll see a lot of additional usage down there, and hopefully that will keep them moving on.
Thank you.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, I would make a motion to approve the project going into the bidding phase as presented and as proposed. I would also like staff working with administration to be meeting and working with Mike Hockers to see if there's options or alternatives based on his 5 generations of utilization of the property and his positive impacts on the community otherwise.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to proceed with putting the bridge plans out to bid, and then also staff and admin to work with Mike and Mary on possible alternative. Okay, does everybody understand? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10G, consider, discuss, act on adoption of a revised employee handbook. Joel?
All right, thank you, Madam President. You can thank me for the 400 pages in your agenda packet tonight. This is the start of those 400 pages.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, 262 pages
Thanks,
on
Joel.
personal alone. I counted them myself individually.
All right, well, I'm not going to spend as much time as we did last week at Personnel and Finance on these topics, but I can certainly answer whatever specific questions you have. The first item is under G, which is the employee handbook. Real quickly, I just want to mention that this has been a pretty lengthy process for us. This effort to revise our employee handbook started approximately 8 months ago with the creation of an internal staff committee to assist in the development and rewrite of the handbook. As had been indicated to our personnel committee, this group were individuals throughout the entire organization, line staff, field staff, office staff, individuals across departments between public works, parks, rec, forestry, public safety, so on and so forth. The goal of the committee was to rewrite the handbook so that it became clearer and more transparent to the employees as it relates to our employee relation policies for the organization. And I think they've done a really good job of that. A couple quick things that I'm going to mention in the handbook that I think the board would be genuinely interested in that have somewhat material impact or changes to the organization and the services we provide. First and foremost, the 2 things that have financial implication from what we've drafted. Number 1, there's an increase in the boot allowance. So we do provide an allowance for our field staff. The previous handbook was crafted in 2014, had a value of $175 for annual boot allowance. We've increased that to $200, so a nominal increase, but an increase nonetheless. In addition to that, we increased the tool reimbursement for our mechanics from $400 to $500. Again, this has been a fee that's been pretty static. Beyond that, non-monetarily, but that do have impacts to service and organization, would be directly related to hours of operation. So under that particular section, we are proposing creating a summer and off-season hour of operation for our administrative offices as well as our field staff. So what that would look like is essentially from the date of the Tuesday following Labor Day to the Friday preceding Memorial Day, we would be under our regular operating hours. So office staff work 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. They take an hour lunch. Our field staff work 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, and they basically take a lunch throughout their day as they're working. The proposal would then have summer hours, so the Tuesday following Memorial Day to the Friday preceding Labor Day, where the employees would be working effectively a modified schedule, longer hours Monday through Thursday, with a half day on Friday. And so in reviewing other municipalities, it's a pretty common practice. In fact, there's kind of a split between some municipalities that offer that schedule all year and other municipalities that provide that schedule only during those summer hours. So we are proposing as part of that handbook those changes for that. And then second to that, I'll just touch on holidays. So in the previous handbook, we did provide several half-day holidays. Half-day holidays are really not that fun when it comes to administering, and not that fun for employees either, because they still have to come in for a half-day and work and leave. So what we are proposing is to eliminate the half-day holidays. Previously, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and Good Friday were listed as half-day holidays. So the proposal would be to make Christmas Eve a full-day holiday, and then we would eliminate the half-day holidays on New Year's Eve and Good Friday, but then we would in turn provide an extra day of vacation to the vacation table that employees could then use throughout the year however they see fit. So they're still being provided with the same amount of time off. In fact, they're gaining a half day of additional time off, but they can do it based on their needs and their desires. There are other material changes, but when we went through this at Personnel and Finance last week, it took us about 45-50 minutes, so I won't spare the very intricate details of some of those material changes. Those are really the balance of ones that have substantial impact to operations or financial implications. Beyond that, I will mention that Steve and I did have a conversation this afternoon. There was a question about overtime, and there may be a misconception among some of our field staff that previously an employee would be eligible for overtime after working 8 hours. And this is public works, utilities, parks and forestry staff. When in fact that previously under our old handbook, in order to earn overtime, you would need to work 40 or more hours in a work week in order to receive that. And that practice has been in place since the last handbook revision and likely beyond, so back to 2014. I think where the concern is that we've identified in the handbook, again, to provide clarity to the language, that hours worked include obviously hours worked, but also approved time off under any time off that is allowed under the handbook. So if an employee, as an example, an employee works Monday, they work their typical shift in the field from 7A to 3P, and then let's say they plow snow from 3P to 8P. They're thinking they're getting overtime for those extra 4 to 5 hours, but when in fact they won't technically earn the overtime until they have worked at least 40 hours in that work week. Now, let's say that employee then has off on Friday. They plan to take vacation. Those 8 hours of vacation count towards their hours worked, and so then they would earn their overtime. Conversely, let's say that employee decides, hey, I already worked 4 hours, so I'm going to come in late on Friday and no call, no show, and then I'll come in at noon and no big deal, right? In that situation, when it's not an approved time off, somebody's failed to show up for work or doesn't show up at all or shows up late, they would not, in fact, be entitled to that overtime as a result. But if they've been off for vacation, approved sick leave, compensatory time, bereavement leave, or any of those other approved leaves, in accordance to the handbook, those do count towards your hours worked. So you do not lose overtime. It's only when you have an employee that fails to show up to work. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions specifically related to the handbook, and I can certainly go through those details and further.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification on that, Joel. I think, and as we had discussed, you're going to be bringing this to the attention of all the employees in group meetings to clarify and make sure that they understand what has taken place within the context of the employee evaluation. And you know as well as I do, and over the years, things change, things are modified to some degree. You know, a lot of what's in that the agreement right now came via Act 10, and so with that, a lot of it goes back quite a long ways when it's all said and done. But I appreciate your getting back to me and explaining it, and I think if it's explained to the employees, it'll go a long ways.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
I just have a question for Rex and Brian on the administrative hours shifting for the Friday afternoon off. Do you guys have any concerns with your department specifically not having staff in on Friday afternoons?
Specifically, Tracy, could you give an example of what you're asking?
Yes, I was wondering, let's say you have a big tournament coming up, Rex, and you have your staff leaving at noon on Friday. That's like your public works type or maintenance people.
I mean, if they take vacation time?
No, because the season, the hours in the proposal are Fridays, would be off at noon during the summer months.
It won't work for us.
Yeah, and as we had talked at Personnel Committee, so in that regard, let's say Rex has a program or some type of an event going on, it doesn't guarantee the right that that employee is going to be given that time off, right? So their schedule is going to be dictated and predicated based on the needs of that department. So if there's a large special event at Ashwaubomay, a sesquicentennial ×2 celebration coming up, and we're going to be, Mary's saying no, there's some event that's going on that's going to require or dictate operational needs. The handbook provides provisions for that department head or that supervisor to say, no, we're going to be working that Friday. But from a standpoint of what should be expected from the general public as far as hours of operation, Village Hall would be closed on Friday afternoon. Now, again, and I mentioned this at committee too, so let's say a developer were to say, hey, I want to meet with Aaron, Joel, and Mary and talk through a development agreement. I can only come in on Friday afternoon. Generally speaking, we're all going to say, okay, let's schedule it for Friday afternoon, and then we'll be here. Now, Village Hall will be closed to the public, but we'll still schedule and meet with those individuals. Same thing if somebody requires a building permit, but the only time they can come in, it just requires them to then use a little bit of foresight and schedule in advance prior to coming in. So those weekend warriors, if you come in at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon in the middle of summer thinking you're going to get a shed permit without calling in advance, they unfortunately would be out of luck. But if they call on Wednesday and say, hey, I'm going to be building a shed on Friday and I need a building permit, can I come in? Generally, somebody's going to be available, or we'll work with that individual to be available.
Yeah, and and I understand all that. I mean, as long as the word's out that we're closing at noon on Friday, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. My question was specifically to Rex and Brian, that if just the idea of being off at noon in your normal work, not saying there's a huge special event, is this going to work with you and your crew? That's all I'm wondering.
And that's something I spoke with both Lee and Al in regards to it, who directly oversee the operations of both utility and streets. They didn't express any major concerns. We're actually very supportive of the alternate schedule, especially during the summer months, just from an employee morale standpoint, allowing those to carry on with maybe their activities a little sooner on the weekend. As some may be aware, there's a lot of county municipalities that work 410s, and it works with great success. So the one thing that I did talk with Lee about is trash and recycling collection. What does that look like for us? Is that going to be a major problem? And he did not express that there would be any concern. We do generally always have a backup trash or recycling truck. What would need to be done is that truck would need to get sent out on that Friday, or we would need to look to potentially modify what days what residents get picked up on. So it's something that would be more of a pilot, and we keep an eye on how it's working, and maybe look long term that if this is working, we don't want to just adjust people's trash schedules just based on season, how this is set up. So if it were to be something that were to be all of a sudden be year round more than just seasonal, then we would maybe look into adjusting people's pickup days for trash and recycling.
Regarding park and recreation, I mean, we can make anything work, but quite honestly, there's going to be challenges to it. I think with things that need to be prepped on the weekends with ball diamonds and softball fields and things like that, we need a full work day on Friday. So we can't do it on Thursday because they're used Thursday night. So you got to start all over again on Friday morning. And with the number of fields we have in use and what we have used on Saturdays and Sundays, you need a full 8-hour day. And typically then that involves the full-time crew as well as the college kids trying to get done. as well. So I'll be honest, I mean, Joel and I have talked about it. I'm skeptical. I mean, we'll work with whatever the board decides, but there's going to be challenges, at least in the Park and Recreation Department, getting things right because of the amount of stuff that's done on the weekends and things that need to be fixed and projects that we've got going on.
But Joel, you sound like with the manual, then that does allow staff or the managers to say, okay, to their staff, you're going to have to work a full day on Friday. This is not saying that they are guaranteed every Friday afternoon off.
That is correct.
And you will make that clear, because see Rex's point, you know, you got a lot of stuff going on the weekend, and to try to get that done without having the staff is tough.
Correct. Yep, absolutely. Yes. So there's plenty of flexibility within that schedule. And the other factor that could come into play is, and there's enough flexibility within the policy that a department head could also say, and it's really up to Rex, and I don't mean to put him on the spot. So this isn't specific to Parks, Rec, and Forestry. It could be really any operational department, but say Fridays are a really important day, especially in the summer months, and we can't afford to only work a half day. But I also recognize the value and importance of providing that half day. So maybe in lieu of that, we'll have some flexibility where we'll provide a half day on a different day of the week, right? And provide that flexibility based on that to, again, recognize that there's a value to that morale component. Or maybe, you know, Rex could work with the manager even off season to say, hey, you know, maybe we flex schedules, and we've been doing that in the office environment as well, where we flex schedules to provide people off season, knowing that summers are the busiest time for Parks, Rec, and Forestry. So there's enough wiggle room within the policy. It's really more of a statement for the general public to understand that we won't be open for service at Village Hall for those days, and that we're working towards providing that flexibility and that time off for our staff.
Really under 5.10 work schedule, it says specific work schedules for employees may vary, and then there's a lot of other language that support it. And so basically you have the flexibility to adjust your schedule to meet your needs, bottom line.
We do. I think a component to that, quite honestly, I don't know if I want to bring this up, but I guess I have to bring this up, is if you're at full staff. And that means, you mean, with the seasonal staff as well. Because it'll be hard for me to let any full-time staff go without a full complement of seasonal staff working with them. Because it's just the sign of the times right now of what can and can't be done with the manpower that's out there. And we struggled this year as it was.
I'm sure that'll be an important topic during the budget discussions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, you guys.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to adopt the employee handbook dated October 13th, is that correct? 2022?
Second.
Motion and a second to adopt the employee handbook dated October 13th, 2022. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10H, adopting updated organization chart and position descriptions. Joel.
Okay, then the next section is related to the organization and functional chart for the Village of Ashwaubenon. As indicated by municipal code, the village manager is responsible for presenting that plan of structure and organization to the board for adoption. This plan was in fact presented to the board last year, to which it was adopted. And since that time, in accordance to the 2023 budget, there were a couple of different positions added, one in particular, the multimedia communications specialist, which is now shown, as well as an additional laborer on the public works side. Beyond that, as part of our strategic plan and in an effort to support the next agenda item, which is the village's wage and salary matrix, staff has been in the process of developing position descriptions for each non-represented position In addition to that, all the sworn public safety officers are also being worked on as we speak. But in your packet is essentially all of the position descriptions for non-sworn, non-represented employees of the Village of Ashwaubenon. These position descriptions were presented to Personnel and Finance last week at their meeting in draft form, to which point members of the committee and staff have further presented edits, changes, comments to the position descriptions. As a recap, the position descriptions were drafted basically from a prior position description that had been prepared what could be decades ago. Not sure exactly where they all came from, but some of them could be more recent for positions that were created within the last couple or few years. Beyond that, the position descriptions were then presented to the department heads, to which point they met with their staff or a select number of staff that had similar positions, and the descriptions were reviewed, edited, and changes were made to reflect their active responsibilities. These position descriptions, without getting too much into the next agenda topic, are used to determine what a appropriate wage or salary would be assigned to that position. So it was critically important for these position descriptions to be accurate and reflective of not only the responsibilities of the job, but also the minimum qualifications, education, knowledge, and experience that is required for that position in the event that there was a vacancy and we were hiring for that role. So with that, I am really happy to present these position descriptions. I think the staff have done a good job of accurately reflecting the responsibilities and worked well with department heads in ensuring that is accomplished. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have on the position descriptions.
First comment is, I think that this is, to echo what you said, Joel, great job by the staff and everything to come up with these. I did notice in one that I do question that if we had to hire that position, in the executive secretary, we have essential knowledge of municipal government. I don't know if you're hiring an executive secretary and somebody has an executive secretary experience. I don't know that the municipal government knowledge is necessary. I think that they can learn on the job, not having that coming in. So I don't know that that's necessary. I think it would really limit the people that we could even interview for that job because of that. I think we should be out there looking for executive secretary experience and not the municipal experience, because I just think we just aren't going to find somebody with that.
Yeah, I think and not to play devil's advocate, I guess, but the idea, if you're speaking to the confidential executive secretary, that position does perform a lot of responsibilities that are to some degree kind of clerk related as far as municipal clerk goes. They act as the recording secretary for a number of committees, commissions, and boards.
But so does every executive secretary.
Yeah.
They end up on every board. They end up being that recording person, and they end up, so if you find an executive secretary, they have that experience in that.
Sure.
I just think if you limit it to municipal experience, I think you're going to have a real difficult time filling that role. That's my only thought.
So I think changing municipal to related experience would be sufficient.
Yeah, executive secretary experience. You got to have that as essential. I just think if you say municipal, I think you're going to have a real difficult time finding somebody to fill that role.
I just have a question on the village engineer position and the public works director position. Both of them state under license or certificate that the position or the person in the position has to be able to obtain a driver's license. Don't they have one when they come in, or is that, it just says possession of or ability to obtain an appropriate, valid, unencumbered driver's license? Almost all of our other position descriptions require a driver's license, a valid unencumbered driver's license. I was just wondering why it was that way in the village engineer and then the public works director, why that verbiage was different and why they didn't have to have one upon hire.
It would be a requirement for the individual to hold a unencumbered, valid Wisconsin driver's license, so it just needs to be a correction to that, to reflect that.
Okay.
So on the review part of this, Joel, I didn't see any schedule as to when reviews were going to be done and completed and then given to the employee. You know, normally it's always assumed it's at the end of the year, but I just didn't see anything calling that out.
Yeah, and it's been my practice to not include that in the position description. That's more of an employee policy standard. So that actually is specifically addressed in the employee handbook.
Okay.
So there's a very specific process that itemizes a calendared function to the employee review process. Okay. It essentially starts around mid-October, finishes up before the end of the calendar year. Perfect. And it includes both a self-evaluation, a goal-setting meeting with the supervisor, and then a final evaluation with the supervisor to round out the process.
That was to your point around goals. I noticed that in the performance reviews, a lot of them are very subjective. I personally would like to see that change to more goal-orientated, to take the pressure off of Rex and Greg and Brian and Aaron, because when they're subjective like that, somebody can always say, oh yeah, you marked me as a 3 and you marked this one as a 4 because you like them more than me. Or if it's goal-orientated, that eliminates all that. Mm-hmm. So I like, when I'm looking through the performance reviews, they're all kind of subjective. I get that you set goals, but I don't see that coming out in the review process here. As far as, here's how you performed, I'd like to see the performance against the goal, just to help these guys with the review process. Otherwise, you get into, well, you like them more than me, and that's the reason why they get, they're getting better than me. No, whether that's true or not, but if they're goal-oriented, then it's cut and dry.
Sometimes those goals are more difficult to assign on an annual basis because things change so dramatically during the year. So that kind of makes it a little bit more.
Don't disagree, but when I've done review processes, the ones that are goal-oriented are much easier to administer than the ones that are very subjective, like I'm seeing here, just because it's difficult. And as much as you like to say, well, one person shouldn't be talking to the other person, guess what? That's not the way it works.
I used to always say, do your job.
Yep. That's just a comment,
I think
Joel.
Lombardi said that before I did, though.
Okay.
That's just a comment on my experience with these processes. The more goal-oriented you can make them, the easier are they're to administer, and it really supports the management.
Yeah, I think
they're tougher to set, to make them measurable, but they're easier to administer and to understand why, especially when you get into the bonus criteria and things like that. It makes it so much easier at that point than being subjective.
Yeah, not to delve too much into this, because I think this is related to the next agenda item. So, but that's the intent too with not only the behavioral assessments, is that there's the point of having that self-assessment and then that goal-setting meeting. It's not so much the tangible goals that they're having conversations with. It could be other factors, behavioral factors that are being evaluated on. So maybe it's been identified that a certain employee doesn't have a strong respect for others. Okay, well, what documentation or evidence do you have that suggests that? And then what can we do to improve upon that? So that's where that conversation comes in.
Here's a suggestion of a class you should take. Here's that, so that if they do that, then you can have them meet that goal, which then has that. Those are the things I'm referring to.
Right. Yep. Any other questions on position descriptions?
I have one other question on position descriptions and the Director of Public Works. We had talked about when we were in the interim, we had shifted some jobs to different staff, and I just wanted to see if they had been shifted into their position descriptions from the Public Works Director's position, if you've did any of that yet.
Yeah, so there are a few changes. So if you look at the village engineer position, it had been traditionally just the village engineer. So the goal there was to kind of convert that to an assistant director position. So in the event that, let's say, Brian is absent from his role, then the village engineer would assume that responsibility. Beyond that, some subtle nuances as far as what duties and responsibilities would come from that. And then in reviewing position descriptions for the street operations supervisor or the utility operations supervisor, a lot of the duties that Doug was doing are in their position descriptions. It's just a matter of Brian working with his staff to ensure effective delegation to those.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah.
We don't want to overwhelm Brian.
I don't know if I want to touch it, if you want to hit on any of that, but no. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or I will take a motion?
Do you need a motion to approve the job descriptions as revised and presented? Is that what you're looking for?
That is correct.
Correct.
So moved.
And the official organizational chart, you wanted that in there too, or not?
Correct.
I agree.
I'll second both of that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the official organizational chart and position description for all non-elected positions of the Village of Ashwaubenon. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10I, consider, discuss, act on proposed 2023 village wage and salary matrix. Joel, you've been really busy, Joel.
Yeah, we've been busy. So this particular item has been reviewed by Personnel and Finance for the better part of 3 months, in fact. And it foundationally is established through the effective analysis of each position for the Village of Ashwaubenon. When we drafted our strategic plan, it was noted that we don't have a sound methodology for identifying wages and salaries for our positions. In fact, when an individual were to vacate a position, what salary is that position? What range does that position have? When we go out to advertise, there was no sound understanding or historical knowledge. It was really just whatever the incumbent had was what was the salary for that particular position. There were some vestiges of some public works union type viewpoints and thought processes. But what we found there is, generally speaking, an employee comes on and let's say they start at 90% of their full wage. After 6 months, they move to 95% of their full wage, and then within the first year, they move to 100% of their full wage. And so we have employees that are 25-year veterans with the Village of Ashwaubenon, and they're making the exact same wage as somebody that's been here 12 months has been making. And so there was some viewpoint or some thought process that is relatively unfair. So what we wanted to do is create a wage and salary matrix that wasn't specific to an individual, but specific to positions and is evaluated based on the essential duties and responsibilities, the minimum education, knowledge, and experience that individual should hold, and then ultimately kind of the work conditions that position has. In order to do that effectively and objectively, a wage and salary matrix was developed. So in your packet, the wage and salary matrix is essentially a 15-step process. To which point there are 15 grades then assigned to that. Each grade is given an internal range of points. Those points are determined by basically evaluating each position against the 8 grading criteria, which are then weighted and scored, and then ultimately given a total point to assign within a grade. Each step within each grade equates to a 2% lift. So the thought process is when an employee gets hired, they get placed into a wage, and then thereafter, every successful evaluation to which that employee meets or exceeds expectations, they are eligible for a step increase. And the thought process behind that is that they are doing their job, and over time, through their tenure, they are gaining experience, knowledge, and efficiencies, and as a result of that, they earn an additional higher wage at a 2% lift. Within the matrix itself, again, 15 steps. The first 6 steps are considered the hiring range. So under the policy that we're proposing for adoption is that when an employee is, or a candidate for employment is being considered, that we would have the ability to hire anywhere within that hiring range to try to match the employee's desired wage or salary when they're coming into the organization, or kind of match that lateral hiring position that they may have from coming outside of the organization. Now, that does not necessarily mean that we can't hire somebody beyond step 6. It just means administratively we can't. So what that means is, let's say we have a department head that we want to bring on board. That individual has lateral experience in another municipality, and they're an attractive candidate that we want on our staff. Effectively, the board would have the ability to say, okay, we're going to hire this person outside of the hiring range, and we'll start them at this rate. And then so they get placed into the matrix, and then they can work up the scale from that point forward. The scale itself, again, is salary and hourly wages. The salary is just that, the salary. The hourly wages is essentially taking the salary and dividing it by 2,080 hours. So nothing too overly complicated there. Annually, the plan would be that administration, through the budgeting process, would propose adjustments to the matrix based on cost of living increases and CPI. So every year, we analyze that through the Bureau of Labor Statistics and then propose through the budget process an increase that way. If an employee then has reached their final step in their pay plan, so step 15, they are effectively redlined, meaning they no longer have the ability to increase their wage by step. They can only increase their wage by those cost of living increases that the board from time to time approves to the matrix, okay? And they're, in reviewing this with our department heads and some staff internally on our handbook review committee in particular, the concern was, well, when I'm redlined, does that mean I no longer have any opportunities for wage growth? And the answer is yes and no. Yes to the fact that you won't be able to advance more steps. No to the fact that you will have CPI increases from time to time to adjust your wage. But it's really no different than where we are today. Individuals have a wage, the board says we're going to budget 4%, everybody gets 4%, and there's no tie to performance, there's no tie to tenure, there's no tie to the responsibilities of the position. So we're working to try to resolve that. On page 2 of the matrix is a position analysis. So for each of the position descriptions that you have now reviewed this evening, they have been placed into this matrix and scored. And again, much like the position descriptions, each department head was given the opportunity to review the matrix, provide feedback, meet with me, and kind of analyze, review, and adjust those points to reflect the position descriptions. And I would say that every department has had feedback on each of their positions, and we've worked through any concerns that they have and have made those adjustments. Again, you can see how they get scored out. That we have 8 specific criteria that we use that eventually gets to our full total internal points, and those points equate to the grade. What I will mention is that we do have a 9th column on the position analysis, and that's called market adjustments. There will be times where we have specific positions that, based on the responsibilities and the role of that job, we may find that in the marketplace, so our competition, they may be paying a higher wage than it would score on our matrix. And so when we recognize those conditions, we can add additional points, albeit rather subjectively, to increase their internal point score to get that to a pay grade that matches where they're at competitively. There are a few examples where we have done that. One example would be our building inspector position. Those positions are increasingly more and more difficult to find qualified candidates for. And so we are seeing quite a bit of wage competition to bring those wages up to attract those candidates. The other use of the market adjustment is in the event that we have positions where we provide scalability. And what I mean by that is you might see a field operator 1, field operator 2, utility operator 1, utility operator 2, or as an example, our village engineer, assistant public works director. So these are positions that we have individuals that have maybe an increased level of knowledge or an experience factor, and they really are doing a great job. And so because of that additional experience, we're willing to place them at a higher rank. So field operator 1 versus a field operator 2. Their position descriptions are basically the same, but one requires more experience and knowledge. So we adjust the field operator 2 position to give it an increase in internal points, thus raising its end grade a grade or two higher than the field operator 1. So that's where those adjustments are made as well. It should be noted when talking with our human resources, if we generally start to see market adjustments specifically to maintain competitive advantage for wages, where we have more than 10% of our positions where we require a market adjustment, generally speaking, our matrix is not aligned. Now we need to go and review our matrix again and do a wholesale kind of salary study. So just bear in mind, when we start seeing more and more adjustments, that does create impact to the matrix, and we may need to review that again more thoroughly. So with that, what we would plan to do to implement this is, because everybody is just basically making a wage and not associated, I shouldn't say everyone, individuals in public safety that are represented, sworn officers, they're on a scale. So that doesn't necessarily relate to them, but non-commissioned officers, non-sworn officers, non-represented staff, they are just currently paid a wage. We would need to assign them into the matrix. And so what the proposal will be, and what we have included in our budget, would be this thought process. So as an example, if I were to use a position in the matrix, so field operator, and now I just lost my spot. Oh, darn. Bear with me. So let's say a field operator 1, okay? And that individual is making, if I can get to my item here. Okay, field operator 1 is a grade, if we look at the table, 4, right? Okay. So let's say that field operator 1 is currently making $29 an hour, which is certainly possible, okay? So they're making $29 an hour. What we would effectively do in that grade 4 for that particular position is they would get placed into the matrix into the next logical step. So in the matrix, the next logical step above $29 an hour is step 11, right? Nope. So grade 4, yep, step 11. So that would be $29.25, okay? That's how they would get placed into the matrix. We would complete our end of year performance evaluation as we were describing. And at the end of that, if the employee has found to meet or exceed expectations, they would be eligible for a step increase as of January 1. And so that employee would then move to step 12. And then thereafter, each year, at the end of the year, they would be eligible up to a step increase up to their final max, step 15, okay? That, for most employees, will fall somewhere between a 2% and 4% wage increase from where they're at today. Remember, each step is a 4 or 2% lift. So depending on where they fall within their next highest step to their step increase for performance, it could be up to a 4% wage increase, okay? And that value is accommodated and accounted for within the budget that you'll see as early as next week. We do have a handful of positions that we have found in this study in which they are not falling within the matrix and where they should, based on the tenure of their position or the lateral hiring of their role. So as an example, we might have an employee that has 25 years of experience. They're in a grade 4 position, but with 25 years of experience, they're only making $25 an hour. Okay, so when we look at that, in that scenario, they would fall under step 4, under a grade 4, so 2546, but they have 25 years of experience. So they really should be closer to the higher end of their grade, of their steps, in order to account for that tenure. So what we are proposing to do is we would advance that particular employee outside of the hiring range an equal number of steps that they're in the hiring range. So if I'm at step 4, I'm moving 4 steps outside of the hiring range. So step 4 would get me to step 10, right? That would where I'd be starting. And then I would advance 1 full step at the end of the calendar year as it relates to my performance.
And are you saying, Joel, that that person would currently is actually making the 2584?
Yeah, so we have employees that
even with 25 years of experience.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have a handful of employees that fall under that realm. So as part of the budget process that you'll see next week is there's a wage reserve that we've allocated within the budget to account for that, so that we can effectively adjust their salaries to match that.
How many employees are we talking about?
There's at least 8 employees that I'm aware of. We're still going through Dahlia from our payroll departments, preparing kind of that final review so that we can get that information prepared and presented.
Are they in the public works area?
No, they're actually throughout different departments. So in fact, our public works operators and stuff are where they probably should be. Again, if an employee has 25 years of experience and they end up falling in under step 12 or 13, we're not making any sizable adjustments. It's only those employees that have those longer tenured experiences that are still in their hiring range. They need to be beyond the midpoint, and that's effectively what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Okay, and again, so as I mentioned, so to account for the fact that we have those individuals that will see a larger bump in order to match their tenure with their pay, we do have a wage reserve allocated within the budget for next year as well. So with that, again, as I mentioned, we've kind of discussed this over the past 3 months with personnel and finance, kind of process, sequence, events, activities. Last week, we discussed the final position descriptions and how they scored out. And so there's been some adjustments based on their conversations and conversations we've had with staff since that time. And so with that, I'll answer any questions that you have in relation to the salary and wage matrix process.
I think it sounds like a great process. I mean, you've obviously put a lot of time and energy into it, and I think it'll be fair to everyone the way it's set up. So I don't have any concerns or any comments on it.
I agree. I was impressed in the committee when you presented it. I thought it was a great direction ahead, and a lot of work went into it. Where do you foresee most of the employees landing on that matrix? Like, are we heavy on the experienced end, or are we going to be in the middle? I'm just wondering how close to the 15 years we are with everybody.
There are a few employees that are going to probably hit somewhere close to that step 12 or better, but by and large, I think when you look at those particular positions, quite a few of them that I've seen have the 10, 15, 20 years of experience. So that, again, they kind of fit where they should. So we're being competitive that way. Now, when we put this matrix together, we've been working on this for 6-8 months. Now we're starting to see, so we were taking data that people had from 2022, and now we're seeing people adjust their matrices as part of their 2023 budget. So I'm a little nervous that the matrix might be on the lower end based on some inflationary things that I've been seeing in some other municipal wages. But by and large, we're still highly competitive. I think we're highly competitive, but if we don't make adjustments to the matrix next year as part of the budget for CPI, I think we may start to lose some of that advantage.
Okay, any other questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
I would make a motion to adopt the 2023 salary and wage grade matrix as presented.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the 2023 salary and wage grade matrix as presented. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10J, consider, discuss, act on changes to village health insurance plan design. Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. So at the dais, I handed out an updated copy of our 2023 medical prescription drug plan, and then attached to that was the 2023 dental renewal rates. These are slightly different than the information that was provided to you in your packet, primarily because we met with our consultants at Brown & Brown on Monday and finalized our stop loss insurance numbers. So that did tweak the numbers slightly from what was in your packet, albeit relatively minimal. So what we are proposing for the 2023 plan year are a few plan design changes from the prior health insurance program. I'll try to touch on a few of those. The first one is, well, let me back up. Ultimately, what we're attempting to do is twofold. One, we've seen an increased cost in providing health insurance coverage to our employees. As a result of those increased costs, we are a fully self-insured program. As a result of those increases in costs, our health insurance fund, the fund balance, is being depleted at a relatively rapid pace. And ultimately what we want to do is stabilize the fund by reducing the loss, but then also increasing the fund balance to a point where we have a healthy reserve to support the fact that if we have a catastrophic loss. So because we are fully self-insured, every medical expense that comes to us for every employee is paid directly by the village, up to $75,000. After $75,000, our stop loss insurance kicks in and covers the remaining balance. So there still is quite a healthy amount of exposure up to that $75,000 amount. So we need to ensure that we have a healthy fund balance to support that effort. So by doing so, what we're proposing to do is a few plan design changes. The first would be to increase our deductible amounts. Under federal law, we would be required to increase our deductible regardless, albeit at a lesser amount. Originally, if we were to maintain status quo, we'd have to increase our deductible by $100 for individuals and $200 for families. What we are proposing to do, though, is to increase our deductible beyond that. So we'd go from a $1,500 deductible to a $2,000 deductible for single and a $3,000 deductible to a $4,000 deductible for family. And the reason for that is our goal is to reduce the amount of monthly premium cost, both to the employee and the employer. By doing so, again, we can help build our fund balance. The next option that we looked at was to increase our employee contribution. So right now, if an employee completes their health risk assessment incentive requirements, they currently pay 0% premiums towards their health insurance. Under this proposal, we would be asking employees that complete their health risk assessment incentive to contribute 2.5%. So it's a very nominal increase in relation to the overall cost. An employee that does not complete their HRA requirements, they would still pay an additional 2.5% for a combined total of 5% employee premium. So you can see on this sheet here, if you look at the premium equivalent, by increasing the deductible size and reducing some of our costs that way, we are able to reduce the overall premium cost to the village and to the employees, the combined premium equivalent of $31,664. By doing that, and by including the employee contribution of 2.5%, we are reducing the overall cost to the village of $76,246. And ultimately what we're trying to do is take about $75,000 to $100,000 annually in savings over the next 5 years to build up a fund balance of about $500,000. So that'll give us a solid contingency of reserve to support should we have a significant catastrophic loss in the organization.
Joel, do you know approximately how many employees do the health risk assessment that they get the premium reduction? Is it like 80%? Is it 20%? Or it's high?
It's definitely over 90%.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Couldn't give you an exact number, but it's the exception rather than the rule to complete it. It's relatively easy, so it's just basically a blood draw, lab work with our health provider at Bellin, annual physical, and then in the event the employee scores at a certain level in their health risk assessment, they have to meet with the nurse coach to just review the results and put together a plan.
Nice.
Any other questions on the medical side? So no other plan design changes. We're not increasing out-of-pocket maximums. We're not increasing coinsurance requirements, not changing prescription drug benefit. The only substantial changes are the change in the deductible and the change in going from a 0% employee contribution to a 2.5% employee contribution. Next up is our dental, and I'll explain one other change that affects both dental and medical, so bear with me for a moment. But on the dental side, our dental program has been losing money for years, but that's because it was making money for a long time too. So conscientiously, we've neglected to increase our rates in any shape or form because of the substantial fund balance that we have to support that program. And that's no different than what we have proposed for you today. The reason why I'm showing the dental rates is that concept that I mentioned before that affects both medical and dental, and that is adding additional tiers to the program. Right now, under the medical plan, we have an employee single plan, we have an employee plus one plan, which is employee plus spouse, and then we have a family plan. In reviewing our plan design, we found that we could find savings for not only the employee, but also the employer by adding a fourth tier. So we have a single plan, a single plus spouse, and then the employee plus child or children plan along with family. And where that came from is apparently through our own analysis and through analysis from Brown & Brown is that the employee plus spouse plan actually costs us more than an employee plus child plan on the medical side. So, but on the dental side, that's different. So it's kind of interesting. So on the medical side, the older you get, the more healthcare needs you have, and these are likely, in all likelihood, empty nesters, right? So a longer tenured employee with their spouse, generally speaking, and so they're on the plan together and they have larger health needs, versus a single parent who has dependent children, or maybe a married couple whose spouse can enroll in a health plan through their employer and get a better deal. The less adults you have on the plan, the less costly it is on the medical side. On the dental side, it's the opposite. It's the kids that cost so much money. It's their fillings and all the candy and all the caps and crowns and all that other fun stuff that kids have. So we're adding a fourth tier to provide options for our employees to better meet kind of their needs and find those costs. So no substantial changes to the premium rates or accommodations for dental, just adding that fourth tier of the employee plus child. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have, and hopefully that answers it.
No, it's one of those things that occurs on a regular basis, medical, dental. I've not seen the rates go down ever. And I think the only thing you can do is try and moderate those by managing your plan, and I think the recommendations here are a step in the right direction.
Is that a motion, Steve?
No.
Come on, Steve.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the village health and dental plan modifications as proposed and presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the changes to the village health plan insurance design as presented. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed, I'm sorry. There's no opposed, okay.
She's moving now.
Yeah.
10K, consider, discuss, act on sanitary sewer use ordinance modifications. Brian Rickard.
All right. You guys may have
exciting
noticed, what was that?
This is exciting stuff, right?
This is very exciting stuff. You guys may have noticed about a month ago, we received a letter from Green Bay Met Sewage District, New Water, about changes to the current sanitary use ordinance. Majority of those changes within that document were very grammatical and just general cleanup of kind of old nomenclature and old industrial names or common uses of language. With that, the only fiscal impacts, they do have some very minor adjustments to the loadings that are sent to the treatment plant, both some of which that are more and less restrictive, depending on the parameter, and that is shown on page 8. With that, this change or modification to the current ordinance was sent out to all users, not just the Village of Ashwaubenon, all users of the New Water Sewage District. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that the board may have.
I have no questions, comments.
It's one of those that, guess what, you're going to have to take it.
Yes.
So I will make a motion to accept the modifications to the sanitary sewer use ordinance with Green Bay Metropolitan Sewage District.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the sanitary sewer ordinance with modifications. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, 10L, consider, discuss, act on Brown County Solid Waste Amendment. Brian.
All right, so this is a very similar item. There's currently a contract in place for Brown County Solid Waste. With this, they're making us aware of changes to the tipping fees, which is based on a tonnage rate. With that, in 2022, we were charged at the transfer station, which is west of here, $47.82 per ton. That rate to take to the transfer station will increase to $52.25 per ton. However, Brown County is offering a discounted rate if you do haul your waste directly to Greenleaf, which is the new landfill that was constructed earlier this year, just coming online. What we're currently looking to do is, if we know that we have trucks that are fully loaded, heavy tonnage, having them drive directly to Greenleaf. Yes, there is additional miles that would be put on the truck, but oftentimes the time that it takes waiting at the transfer station is similar to the time that's going to take to drive to Greenleaf. Greenleaf is set up to be a very efficient operation, so kind of a quick in, quick out. So with that, there's potentially very limited impacts. That's something that we're just going to kind of monitor as we go through the year. We do, of course, have the opportunity to haul all waste to Greenleaf, but we want to be sure if we do have those light loads, say it's a, bulk item pickup week, and it's, a load of mattresses that doesn't weigh a whole lot, doesn't make sense to run it all the way down to Greenleaf, if we can take it to the transfer station.
What's the difference in mileage between going to the transfer station versus going down to Greenleaf? Do you know, is it 10 miles or 20 miles? Do you have any idea?
I don't have that off from the top of my head. I would say it's probably almost twice the mileage. As for actual time spent, whether it's driving and then waiting at the transfer station or driving down to Greenleaf, the trucks are still running, albeit that, they're idling rather than going at highway speed. So obviously there will be additional fuel usage. But in the grand scheme of things, I think there's definitely savings to be had, especially when you're looking at an additional $10 per ton. Each truck, they're anywhere from 8 to about 15 tons, so it could be about $150 per truckload additional by going to the transfer station.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the Brown County Solid Waste Amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve amendment number 1 to the Brown County Solid Waste Management Service Agreement. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 11, items for next agenda. If anybody has anything, please call. Brian, since you're new here, I used to periodically ask for, in the department reports, approximately what it costs when we do our large item pickup. People don't realize how much it actually costs to get rid of the garbage. I always say that. I mean, it costs us upwards of $20,000 a month just to get rid of garbage for residential, because we don't really pick up that much commercial. It's a lot of money, and I don't think people really realize that. So every now and then, just throw that number in your director reports.
Yeah, and one other comment, I'd like to profusely acknowledge and thank Joel and Mary for getting the city of De Pere to get off their butts and get that roundabout taken care of the way it should have been. It's only taken 4 years, but the wait has been worth it.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Yes. Much appreciated.
Okay. Number 12, closed session items. During the meeting, the village board of the Village of Ashwaubenon may convene into closed session pursuant to both A and B listed on the sheet. The village board may thereafter reconvene into open session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, parent 2, to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. I need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion and a second to go into closed session. Roll call, please.
President Kardowski.
Yes.
Trustee Service.
Yes.
Trustee Krieger.
Yes.
Trustee Kubaki.
Yes.
And Trustee Flukie.
Yes.
Okay, we're in closed session. Thank you.